Hello my dear sewing friends, it's Alisa here and welcome to Sew and Grow, a channel that is fully dedicated to sewing beautiful, fun, creative clothes for our little ones. Now I'm not sure if you have seen, but I do have a quick and easy series on this channel where we do simple but very useful projects that anybody can sew. And in this episode I would love to show you how you can take a ready-to-wear t-shirt, store-bought, which most of you probably have. You can simplify it and then turn it into a really useful template for a lot of your future projects. And it's going to look very similar to the one that I'm wearing right now. So it's grown-on sleeve, and you can use the same method for both kids and adults. To get started, we're going to need just 3 simple things. Now, first, of course, you're going to need a t-shirt that fits you well, so grab that. Then some sort of paper that you can work on. In my case, this is a medical tracing paper. I will leave a link for you guys in the description, but you can also use taped together printer sheets, old newspapers if you have some, or anything else that you have available. And then a simple marking tool like a pencil. I'm going to start by measuring how much paper I need to work with and then cutting off anything extra. Next, I'm going to neatly fold these in half, the t-shirt and the paper. Please note that here I'm working with my t-shirt right side out instead of wrong side out. I find it much easier to do it this way since you can always add necessary seam allowances after you have drafted the outline of your pattern. I am placing side seam to side seam, hem to hem, shoulder seam to shoulder seam, and sleeve to sleeve. If you'd like, you can also add a couple of pins to hold everything together, but please be mindful that sometimes pins might leave marks. Now take your paper with the fold of the paper facing this way, and take your folded t-shirt and align them like so, fold on top of the fold. First thing that I'm going to do is simply make the outline of the side seam, the bottom hem, the shoulder seam and the sleeve all as one. And right here at the neckline, we're also going to make a marking, but not here where the ribbing of the neckline ends, but here where it meets the seam of the bodice. And we're going to do the same on this side as well. We want to mark the connection point between the neckline and the bodice. Now I'm going to lift up the t-shirt, and first I'm actually going to outline this in black so that way you can see a little bit better, but you don't have to do this in your case. To draft in the neckline from the point that we have marked earlier, take a straight perpendicular line like so, and from this point take a straight line down like this. Now you're going to make a beautiful curved line, and this is going to be your front neckline. Now this is what I have as of right now, and this could actually do pretty okay, but we're going to make a few minor adjustments to make it a little bit better for a grown-on sleeve. I am simply going to bring that shoulder seam a little bit higher up, and perhaps shorten it as well. Now let me redraft the sleeve, and I'll tell you by how much I lifted up that shoulder line. So from this point to this point, the distance is about 1 inch. This is going to give your sleeve a little bit more room, especially when you're going to be working with fabrics with only one-way stretch. Please note that this is a 90-degree angle. If some of your other lines are a little bit shaky, let's go ahead and tidy these up. After that is done, your front pattern piece is ready. Now we only have to mark that this is front. You're going to cut 1 on fold, and you can mark this as the fold line. What makes it really simple is that a lot of times in kids apparel, especially when it comes to very simple garments, the front and the back are nearly identical, and the only difference is the neckline. So basically, once you're done with one pattern piece, you automatically have the other pattern piece, and all you have to do is to adjust the neckline, and that's it. To get started on the back pattern piece, I'm going to flip this over and transfer all of the new markings that I have made on the other side of my tracing paper. This is currently the neckline of the front pattern piece. I'm going to take my t-shirt, I'm going to align it with the bottom hem and everything else, and the front of the neckline as well. And then I'm going to mark the connection point between the back pattern piece and the back neckline. Then we're going to do the same as we did before. We're going to take a straight perpendicular line and a line down from this point. After that, a nice curved line to make the new back neckline. This is going to be back. You're going to cut 1 on fold. To finish this up, if you wish, you can add your seam allowances to your paper pattern. Now in my case, I choose to do that as I cut my fabric, and usually for knits, I add either 3/8 of an inch seam allowance or a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, which is just enough to form a serger seam or a zigzag stitch on the sewing machine. You will need to add your seam allowances on the shoulder seam, on the neckline, and on the side seam. And then on the sleeve and on the bottom hem, you will need to add hem allowances. And I usually do about an inch. After seam allowances and hem allowances are marked on one side, of course, you're going to copy them on the other side. And that's it. We're ready to cut the paper pattern out, get the fabric, and start working on the actual garment. To make sure that my hem allowances are correct, I usually fold the hem of the sleeve like so, and then double check. And if I need to add a little bit of extra, I can always place a piece of paper and then outline that curve that I missed when I was marking my seam allowances. Now, if I have a curve like this, most likely I will get rid of it by shortening the hem allowance, so that way I don't have to deal with it. There we go, much better. And don't forget that we're going to repeat the same on the other pattern piece as well. To make sure that we cut our fabric correctly, let's mark the direction of the stretch, which is going to be horizontal. The grain of the pattern is on the center front and center back right here at the fold line. Last time we went to the fabric store, my daughter picked up this really cute strawberry print, and I think that's what we're going to use. And remember, since we copied the garment that is made out of knit fabric, that's exactly what our new pattern is made for as well. Knits with two-way stretch or one-way stretch. As you can see, this particular fabric stretches really well in both directions. First, I'm going to find a selvage. Here it is. Then I'm going to bring it in like that, creating a fold. That's where I'm going to place one of my pattern pieces. Let me straighten this out. And then I'll grab my pattern piece and place the fold on the fold, like so. I can now pin it in place and cut it out. I find that I have to remind myself not to add anything as I cut, because I usually don't mark seam allowances on my patterns, but I add them as I cut my fabric. Here obviously we already marked them on the pattern, so I find that I have to remind myself as I'm going around. Once we're done with cutting one pattern piece, we're going to repeat all the same steps for the other one as well. So now we have the front and the back. Now I am ready to put this together. The first step for me would be to take my front pattern piece, open this up, then take my back pattern piece, open this up as well, and place them right sides facing. Align them at the shoulder seams and pin it. These are the first two seams that we're going to do. If you have a sewing machine, use a sewing machine. If you have a serger, use a serger. Here I'm going to be using my sewing machine, and I'm going to be stitching these seams with a wide zigzag stitch, starting with a small back stitch and ending with a small back stitch as well. Please remember that you need to stitch within the seam allowance that you have marked on your pattern. Sometimes, depending on the knit, when you sew it with a sewing machine, you might get a slightly wavy seam. Now, increasing this stitch width does help with that. But also, if the wave is not too big, we can press it out with an iron. While we're at it, we're going to press two more things: the hem of the sleeve and the hem on the bottom. First, I'm going to place my garment like so. This is the front, this is the back, and I want this seam allowance to be facing towards the back, and I'm going to give it a really good press. Then, whatever was the hem allowance on the sleeve, I'm going to fold it and press it. I will do the same on the bottom hem as well. Now I am ready to sew the side seams. Let's go ahead, place the garment like so. We're going to open up all of the hems that we just pressed. So I'm opening the bottom hem, placing the pattern pieces right sides together, and I will do the same on the sleeve as well. In my case, I've pinned them together, so I'm unpinning, placing them together, and this is how we're going to sew it. As you sew, don't be afraid to stop and adjust your presser foot in the direction in which you're sewing, especially when you're going around the curves. Once you're done with the side seams, you will notice that the hems will want to fold up on their own, and that's exactly what we wanted to achieve, because now you don't have to press in around, but instead your hems are ready to be hemmed. Now, there are multiple ways how you can finish hems on knits using your regular sewing machine, but one of my preferred methods is to do a blind hem stitch. For that, you will need to fold your hem just like you see me do on a screen, and then change your presser foot for a blind hem presser foot. Select a blind hem stitch, and then of course complete the hem. When the bottom hem is done, let's finish up the hem on the sleeves. Here you can use the same method, however in my case they are quite small in the circumference, so I find it easier and quicker to finish them up by hand. The last and final step is to finish up the neckline. Now here I do have a really detailed tutorial on how to sew really neat knit necklines with all the tips and tricks and suggestions, so I will leave it for you in the description. But in a nutshell, it's about 2 inches wide. As for the length, it is about 80 to 85% of the total length of the front and the back necklines combined. It does depend on how stretchy is your knit. Next, I want to mark the center back and center front either with a little marking tool or with a notch. After that, we're going to place the neckband right sides together and sew it at the center back seam. If you choose a lightning stitch on your sewing machine to do it, it will be easier because then you can press that seam open. Now we can fold the neckband wrong sides together, forming a loop. I also like to find the center front, which is opposite the center back, and mark that with a notch as well. Now take the center front, place it like so, align it with the center front of your garment and pin it. I will do the same with the center back. After that, I'm going to stitch in the neckline, stretching it as I go. Just like with the side seams, I'm going to be doing that with a wide zigzag stitch. After your neckline is in, if your fabric allows it, give it a really good press with the seam allowance looking down, so towards the body of the garment. And that's it, you are done. Well, there you have it. It's so easy, plus now you have a template that you can use for a variety of different projects. And if you want to see how you can enhance and make your homemade clothes even better, even more fun, then click on a video right over here. You will see plenty of examples that will sure engage that creativity. And until next time, happy, thoughtful sewing. I'll see you soon.